Hello and welcome to the Sun into Gemini edition of the newsletter. I'm Elizabeth from Elizabeth's Oracle. And wow, we have a big cycle coming up. We've been talking about this for over a year. It is the grand mutable cross that takes shape and comes into full form as the Sun transits Gemini. I've got lots of dates and lots of charts here for you. Here are the start times for each section of this video. So thank you for tuning in and I hope you enjoy. All right, so let me give you an overview. This cycle gets started off with a bang and it just keeps going. As the Sun comes into Gemini, we are right at the beginning of a big full moon in Sagittarius, the first of two we are going to have during this cycle. So everything that happens in between is being bookended by these two moons. And the reason I'm starting with that is that second moon brings us right up to the summer solstice. So big time of change, big time of transition. The other thing to put into the larger sort of annual context or your bigger life changes is that Gemini marks the end of a cycle to a certain extent. Yes, it's the end of the whole winter half of the year that started at winter solstice. It's a mutable sign, so it's about closures and releasing, as we've often talked about, but it sets us up for the Sun going into Cancer, which is a time of new beginnings, and of course the start of the second half of the year or the summer solstice time. So add to that in this cycle these big mutable crosses and particular squares with Saturn that we're going to talk about in the next section, and you have a time that the analogy that I keep being shown is being in a boat when you are in an inlet where you are just coming out to sea. So you're in that water where the ocean is coming in and mingling with the inlet or harbor water, and you're neither back at the harbor but you're not out in the ocean yet. You're in that in between. But there's an excitement that starts to happen in that space where you're like, looking forward to what's coming up, where you're headed, and that, going out to sea, but you're not quite there yet. So that is the context in which, you can look at all of this information and look at your life and see where things are. Another thing that I know a lot of people have dealt with all year is, am I coming, am I going? The clash, the proverbial question, should I stay or should I go? That has been with so many clients. Am I moving? Am I staying? Am I switching jobs? Am I staying put? This cycle, particularly for the mutable signs, so that's the Geminis, the Virgos, the Sagittarians, absolutely, and the Pisces, this cycle should separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and help you make all those decisions. Now, let's look at some of the specific dates. So when I talk about this cycle getting started under a big, getting off with a bang, so to speak, I am not joking. So look at just the first week here. So the Sun rolls into Gemini, the sign of change, the sign of the intellect, the sign of ideas. Next day, boom, big, full cross here, grand, we call this the grand mutable cross under a full moon in Sagittarius, connecting with both Mars while it's still in Sagittarius and Saturn. So Saturn always means business, creating squares to the North Node and Jupiter there in Virgo, squares to Chiron and Neptune in Pisces. So we're shaking it off. There's just no doubt about that. Then you say, okay, on the 22nd, Mercury comes out of retrograde in placid Taurus and starts moving forward again. I know a lot of people will be relieved, but I think a lot of people also kind of really enjoyed, the peacefulness of Taurus. Well, that's going to be with us till the 12th of June when Mercury comes into Gemini, but Mercury will go direct on the 22nd. So that's another signal and a message from the cosmos that things are about to change. 2 days later, Venus, she comes out of lumbering, restful, sensuous Taurus and heads into thinking, electric, spontaneous Gemini. Gemini can't sit still, would drive it crazy. It's curious, it's inquisitive, it wants to know, it wants to talk, it wants to mingle. And so Venus, our social lives are bound to start picking up as this happens. Look for the new connections that start coming in there. But wait, there's more. Saturn comes into its next square with Jupiter. This is the final square of this series. So this square with Saturn, which is restricting things, but in Sag, which is optimistic, in square, making a harsh angle to expansive Jupiter that rules Sagittarius, that wants to be optimistic, but in very methodical Virgo. Whew. I think a lot of you are, again, glad that these are, being put behind us, because it's been this friction between, I want to expand, I want to maybe make investments or go ahead with the next move, and then Saturn going, you need to be very realistic. Is that going to work out? And, just making us think things through very carefully. So again, this may be the last of passing that part of it for you, where you can finally say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and start making those decisions. And then, as if that wasn't enough to get us started, finally Mars on the 27th retrogrades back into Scorpio. What does that mean? Has a lot of interpretations, of course, depends on your chart, but where you feel Mars is your emotions in Scorpio, and you feel the intensity of them. So we are going to have this stage where you are really going to be checking in with your feelings. How do you really feel about things? And as we're going through these decision-making processes, it's a really helpful aspect to go, what is my truth in this? What do I really want? Because Mars will tell you what you desire and how you're going to go get it. It's the energy to get it. And Scorpio just makes you be honest with yourself emotionally. So that's a really powerful start to the cycle. Then the moon heads into Pisces, adding some more of this mutable emphasis. Get a couple days kind of relaxing under that Pisces moon and clearing some stuff out, and then June 1st, look at all these squares. Because we're under this mutable cross, this cycle becomes really important here, June 1st through about the 5th. So we have the sun in Gemini, 90 degrees away from Jupiter, 90 degrees away from Neptune, and absolutely opposing Saturn. So you're going to get those. And then Venus, because she followed the sun into Gemini, will also make the squares to Jupiter and the squares to Neptune and the opposition to Saturn. So again, if we think of the mutables as I think of it as like when you pull up a plant and you shake all the dirt off, of the roots if you're going to replant it. It's kind of that, you're getting there into the nitty and the gritty. And from there, we go into a Gemini new moon. So again, this emphasis of what you're leaving behind. If you did pull up a root, where are you replanting it? Next big noticeable spot, big hot spot, I would say things will intensify as we get to June 17th, because that's the next huge square. This one involves Neptune and Saturn. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But the moon rolls into Sagittarius, our second Sagittarius full moon, culminating on the 20th, the day of the summer solstice. And again, this is such intense energy, and it can manifest in a lot of ways, but I would say the Sagittarians, the Virgos, the Geminis, and the Pisces are all having to make big decisions now. But the rest of us, we look at our chart, where those things fall, and we think about what we want to do moving forward. So that is the overview. Let's move on to the mutables. All right, so let's talk about the grand mutable cross, shall we? And those gigantic squares between Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune. Saturn's just the troublemaker in all this. I'm just blaming everything on Saturn. All right, so in all seriousness, so I'm pulling up a chart here for the first square between Saturn and Jupiter, which technically, for you guys who watch this stuff carefully, is the third meeting between the two of these planets. We had one square last August, and then we just had one on March 23rd. This is finally the end of this tug of war between, should I expand or should I keep being conservative? So that's kind of nice to know, like, that cycle, you worked through it, and this marks an end point. But when you look at this chart, I want you to notice how strong this cross is. We call this a grand cross. Look how close in degree the planets in mutable signs are. When we have planets, they say within 5 degrees of each other, the emphasis is much stronger. Think about it as when you're dialing into a radio station, instead of 103.1, they're on 103.3. For you old folks who know terrestrial radio, if the station is broadcasting at 103.3, you're just going to hear it much more clearly than at 103.5 or 103.1. So this exact cross means a much stronger energy at work, a much stronger choice point or clashing of things where we've got to, you know, go left or right, fork in the road kind of energy, and that is being strengthened by the rest of the cross that's forming around it, that continues to get stronger through this cycle, leading up to the second mutable cross involving Saturn and Neptune on the 17th of June. So let's look at that chart. So again, as you can see, this cross is still big and strong, and as I mentioned in the first section, it's being emphasized by these full moons in Sagittarius building around both of these. So we're really doing this internal questioning of what do we want to do, which thing do we really want the most, and then having to let go of superfluous, you know, whatever is superfluous in your life, be it situations, organizations, things you'd like to be involved in, but it's really not in line with what you are, you know, meant to do and what you feel passionate about and what you're working towards. So this is going to be, again, a cycle of making those clear decisions, and because this is a grand mutable cross, that's being emphasized. Now, again, there still may be a few dangling things because this Neptune-Saturn square is going to occur again in September on the 10th. And of course, the sun will be in Virgo, one of our mutable signs. And as I talked about during the Sun into Pisces video this year and the Sun into Gemini video last year, you know, these are bigger cycles for us, and they are particularly strong for our people who are born under a mutable sun sign, who have mutable moons or risings. But look at your chart again and see where this stuff comes up for you. But it will be extra emphasized because this is a grand cross. As you can see, not only the 90-degree angles between Saturn and Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune, but the fact that they are opposing first the Sun, then Venus, and ultimately Mercury when it gets into Gemini on the 12th of June, and really amping up this mental activity and these choice points. So that's a bit about that, and let me give you the details of how you can reach me and services and where you can get some other free astrological information. I am Elizabeth from Elizabeth's Oracle. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that information is helpful to you. This is such a changing of the guard and such a good opportunity to sort some things out in your life. If you want any support around that, of course, I'm available for readings. We can do them strictly via the astrology of your own personal chart, or we can do them just intuitively. I can be reached at elizabethsoracle.co, and of course, here's my YouTube special. If you order any of my packages, you will get 5 free minutes with your first order. So I welcome you and invite you to the site. You can also sign up to a free monthly newsletter. The newsletter has some specials and some things that don't make it into the videos, including a monthly divination that I do with another message, and the message this month is really good. So if you still do email, I invite you to come on over and sign up for the free monthly newsletter. And the other resource is Kristy's Connection to the Soul. I work with my friend Kristy Ayala. She has a monthly show on Blog Talk, and we will be doing the Gemini edition of her show on May 25th. And Kristy just updated her site, so I'm going to just add a little link here to that. You guys check it out. She also does readings, Reiki, and a host of other modalities. So if you feel guided to work with her, do that as well, because it's the cycle of Gemini and friends, and so and sharing the social aspects. So I wish you a really good cycle ahead. We are being prepared for a big gateway. Like I said, it's like going out into that big ocean. So I hope that you will utilize this cycle to let go of anything that truly isn't working, or that you find yourself really not enjoying, and work on moving towards everything that you're passionate about and excited about. And I think some of that stuff now, with Jupiter picking up some momentum and moving past this last square with Saturn, and I think we're on track and getting ready for another big sort of gateway to open up as we hit that summer solstice. So thank you again for watching, and feel free to subscribe, and thanks again, and have a great cycle. Bye. So chatty during Gemini.